We have our esteemed guest, Mr. R. Sridhar, Executive Vice Chairman and CEO, Indostar Capital. We at Business World hope to have a great learning experience from today's interview. Uh, Once again, a warm welcome to you, Mr. Sridhar. Before we dive deep into our discussion, I would like to request you to please tell us something about yourself. Over to you, Sridhar sir.
So let me first thank Business World for this opportunity. And, as far as my profile is concerned, I am a chartered accountant by qualification, coming from Salem district, Tamil Nadu. And I moved to Mumbai in 1986. So it's about 35 years I've been living in Mumbai. And I have, in my formative years, I've come up the hard way. Being born in a farmer family with the volatile income flows. So we moved to Chennai in 1965 when I was 7 years old. And by the time I finished my schooling, I had to start working to support my education as well as my old parents. So I had the proficiency in typewriting and shorthand, because those days, the moment you finish the schooling, particularly in South, which is more service-minded. So for the girls, they will say music and dance and cooking. For the boys, it will be typewriting, some sports, shorthand and all that. So I took that, and I had a neighbor chartered accountant who started the practice. So I was doing some part-time, earning some 50-100 rupees, and was supporting my family. I was good in mathematics. I finished my BSc Maths with distinction. And then I was working in a seafood export company. Immediately, I got a job for 500 rupees as a clerk, because the chairman was impressed with my mathematics, and he said that we require you to join. But being a pure vegetarian Brahmin, I found it difficult to work in a factory which has complete seafood. So I couldn't bear the smell. But at the same time, fortunately, the chartered accountant with whom I had part-time working, he said that you are good in education. So we will all support you. Why don't you further study and join as an article clerk in my firm? So I joined, and then I was working 3 shifts, morning 8 to 10 and 10 to 6, and then evening 6 to 8 in different places. As an accountant, as a typist, as an article clerk. So I could manage 400-500 rupees per month. And then I studied, and I came out successful in chartered accountant in 1983. When I was doing a part-time job in a cultural institution, there I met my chairman of Shriram Group, Mr. Tyagarajan. He was a treasurer in that institution where I had a lot of interaction. So impressed by my hard work and smartness, he said that why don't you join Shriram Group? So this happened in 1983 when I passed out CA. So Shriram had the largest chit fund company at that time. But I was very reluctant to join a chit fund company being a chartered accountant. I felt it's not good for me to join a chit fund company. But he said that I will shift you to another company, NBFC, in next 1 year. So you joined. So similarly, I worked for a year. And then in 85, he shifted me to hire purchase NBFC, Shriram Transport. And I came to Bombay as a branch manager, after working as a field officer in Nellore, Andhra Pradesh for 1 year. So 85-86, I worked in Nellore as a field officer, which is the lowest position in the company. After becoming a chartered accountant, I worked there to learn the business. And then he shifted me as a branch manager to Bombay. And I came in 86, and then I was very successful in building business for Shriram Transport. And in 94, I became a regional head. And in 2000, I became a CEO of the company. So in 2000, the company's market capitalization was 20 crores. And in two terms, in 10 years, in 2010, I took it to 20,000 crores. So the market cap went up by 1,000 times. Similarly, the asset size was 3,000 crores in 2000. And I took it in 10 years to 50,000 crores. So Shriram Transport still is the largest asset financing NBFC in a niche business. So we were financing small road transport operators as well as used vehicles, pre-owned vehicles. Both have been considered risky by the marketplace. So my job was to create a perception in the minds of the institutional investors as well as institutional lenders that this business is niche. So I changed the mindset, and then the same business was looked as niche business. Only Shriram Transport has got the expertise. Then the market cap started increasing. So that has been a very successful career for me. And then I moved to Chennai for 2 years in the holding company as a CEO. I was with a large private equity Texas Pacific group, which is called TPG. So I was senior advisor for about 2 years in Bombay. And then the opportunity to head Indostar came in my way through Everstone, which is the promoter company of Indostar. So Indostar is another NBFC, which was engaged in financing corporate lending business and SME. So I came in, started 2 new businesses of commercial vehicle and affordable housing. And last 4 years, I've been working in this company. And we listed this company after I came in within 1 year. And then recently, during the peak lockdown and pandemic, we brought a global partner, Brookfield, as our equity partner. And in the next 5 years, we would like to take this company as a evolving, emerging, strong NBFC in the country.
Enormous amount of opportunity to learn from your vast experience, and particularly so impressed with how you kind of succeeded both in your personal life as well as professional life. And the number tells the story. What better than these numbers that you shared with us? Amazing, actually, mind blowing. But great. So having spoken about the greater success in the NBFC sector that you've achieved, or you've been helping organizations that you've been serving, working with, achieve. My question to you is that do you agree the modernization is a necessary component for digital transformation in financial institutions? And if yes, what kind of opportunities it may create?
See, NBFC industry has faced multiple challenges in the last 3-4 decades. And government as well as the regulators have always praised in every forum the role played, but without a commensurate support or recognition. So we have always been categorized as shadow banks. With the industry had the feeling of a stepmotherly treatment vis-a-vis the banks. So in spite of all this, there had been an inbuilt resilience in the industry. So NBFCs, if you look at thousands of NBFCs are there, which have been given license by Reserve Bank. But if you look at the asset size, 15 or 20 maximum NBFCs have got the 90% of the assets. Balance 10,000s and of NBFCs have got the balance 10%. So we have always been in discussion with the regulators and government to give us relaxation and more regulation, but at the same time allow some privileges. The industry has never shied away from regulation, but we have been demanding level playing field and privileges, but it's still yet to come. And in that environment, we have been operating. So in the last 2.5 years had been the recent challenges. The challenges have been every 10 years it has been coming. In 1998, the challenge came via a CRB finance company, which failed. And that triggered a more stringent regulation. So prudential norms have been introduced by Reserve Bank in 1998 when they brought in capital adequacy, income recognition, plus NPL norms, which was not there till that time in the NBFC industry. So that brought NBFC industries to seek license from RBI. Supervision, surveillance and inspection improved. And subsequently in 2008, 10 years later, you know that there was a Western liquidity crisis. So that time there was no money. And that again, with some support, NBFCs survived. And that brought down number of NBFCs. There were many NBFCs, which each industrial house had one NBFC. You take any industrial house in the country, everyone had one NBFC. I don't want to name, but today none of them exist. They all have been washed out in that liquidity crisis, and that reduced the number of NBFCs later. In 2018, exactly after 10 years, the IL&FS happened, and that brought not only liquidity crisis, but the trigger was credibility crisis. So IL&FS has been misunderstood by the market, particularly the mutual fund, which lent at least 1/3 of the total resources in the NBFC industry came from mutual funds. And so mutual funds felt that NBFCs are dangerous, risky, so they stopped. And whatever money NBFCs raised have also to be repaid. So it created a crisis. But NBFC survived. Within 6 months, things normalized. Growth came down. But unfortunately, it was followed by multiple challenges. GDP shrinking, CV down cycle, and then on top of it, a pandemic. So March 20, government announced complete lockdown. We all thought that it would be for 3 weeks. But 3 weeks has now become 18 months. So it was March 20, now we are in September 21. We are still talking about COVID-3 coming. Curbs are there. But during this 18 months, things have slowly, gradually improved. But during this period of pandemic, the insights, what we have learned is that you can sit at home and through virtual mode, through your laptop or smartphone, you can still do everything. So I have been sitting at home for nearly first up to November. We started coming back to office in November. Again, the infections increased, particularly in Bombay, where people rely on public transport. Only people who have private transport can come to office. So, except banks and government departments, private companies have almost shut. So, we realized that COVID brought a lot of hardships and problems and challenges. But at the same time, it opened a different door of our mind, window of our mind, which said that now we have to move to the digital era. So one is that there is no need for us to meet. You can still do. We are talking today with the business world. Without this COVID, we would have met somewhere. But today, with the same efficiency, we are doing this interaction. So that's the realization. And during that period, we were dispersing money. We were collecting money from our customers. We were doing audit. We were doing annual general meeting. We were doing board meeting. Nothing stopped. Everything had been doing through virtual. So it created a impression in the mind. The mindset has changed where how do we carry our business next decade or 20 years? Simultaneously, you find that small startups which have come, whether it is in education or in delivery businesses or e-commerce. All these have made so much of billions of dollars of value, whether it is Baiju or Swiggy or Flipkart. All these have been successful, which have created value which is more than what Bajaj Auto or Asian Paints could do it in, HDFC could do in 30 years, 40 years, have been done in 5 years. So the world is going through a digital transformation, and there is a realization from businesses which are more relationship based, like us. We are all catering to customers who are in the bottom of the pyramid. For example, if you take small truck owners, these small truck owners are vernacular language speaking. We may not be able to access them through any media, whether it is TV or print. You can't give advertisement and invite them. So we have put in place a relationship-based model where our relationship managers will access them, meet them, source loan proposals, and then collect. But over a period of time, slowly, the collections have become completely digital. I was working in a company, I told you, Shriram Transport, which had 70% physical collections. But in our company now, completely we have resorted to digital. So what is happening is, the learning this period is that we have to now change our business model, bring in lot of digital initiatives and transform. Otherwise, the digital tsunami which is coming, we may not exist if you don't start this process. That's the learning.
So you spoke about the importance of modernization with respect to the challenges and various challenges being faced by the industry over a period of time, decades, right, altogether. And you spoke also about some of the advantage that you have been able to take from that digital transformation journey within the organization. So one is that collection part that you've spoken about, which is completely gone digital versus whatever percentage it was, but substantial on ground kind of a collection, right? Besides that, any other adoption of technology that comes to your mind, which you would have recently taken up to get the competitive advantage? Anything that you would like to highlight?
See, the moment the pandemic started, this realization came. Within few months, maybe by August, September, in 6 months, we realized that this is going to be the order of the day. So immediately we started the digitization initiative. See, earlier you had a technology which is supporting your data and information requirements. But digitization is doing the business itself. So we brought in a consultant, KPMG, to help us build this. So we are doing it for our retail business, affordable housing particularly, and commercial vehicle. So here what we are aiming is to give the frontline people digitization, an app through this, so that the customers who are not tech savvy, our customers, though they have the ability to use the phone, may not have smartphones. They are all driver turned owners and self-employed, assessed income category, small house borrowers, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, and all that. So we can't expect them. So we will have to make our people tech savvy, train them, give them an app, so that they sit with the customer and help them conclude the transaction quickly. So here, the digitization is in a consumer business. Today you have companies like Policy Bazaar, where they say you can do anything. You have Bajaj Finance, which says whatever you want to buy, whether it is air conditioner or refrigerator, we give you in 5 minutes. So that is the kind of digitization which has happened. And you have credit bureaus which scans your repayment track record, income and all that. So today with Aadhaar card, with credit bureaus, with banking which is going completely digital, for a consumer financing, consumer loan, you can do everything through digital. So you go to a consumer shop, you want to buy a air conditioner, 5 minutes, all will be done. If you have everything organized, you have a earlier loan, you have an Aadhaar card, you have a PAN card, you have your ITR and all, it's 5 minutes, it will be done. But when it comes to an asset financing, like us, we are financing a commercial vehicle buyer or a house buyer, there is an asset that comes into the picture, apart from the borrower. There are two things. So when it comes to an asset, everything cannot be done through digital. If you are financing a house, then you have to do evaluation of the house, you have to do an inspection, and you have to do a lot of things, title check and all that, encumbrance, through sub-registrar office. Similarly, in the RTO office, you have to check a lot of records. All these things to become virtual will take time. Country is doing it, but they are creating registries, like your DMAT. Everything will come, that will take time. But in the meantime, we are moving towards digitization, but fully when it comes to the borrower, partially when it comes to the asset. With that initiative, we are hopeful that in the next 1 or 2 months, we will be launching it. And we will be able to give customers a delight of turnaround time. What has been taking 3 days, 4 days earlier will take less than a day. So when it comes to KYC, uploading, when it comes to credit bureau, but when it comes to document execution, you have to do it physically. But those documents can be kept in a scanned format to be accessed tomorrow. So everywhere the digital intervention is coming, but it will not be 100% to start with. But gradually I do see in a 5 to 10 year period, our country also will go completely digital. So this gives multiple advantages. One is on the turnaround time. The second is the cost of acquisition. The cost of loan processing becomes less. So that cost advantage can be passed on to the customer. The second is the productivity increases. So what a field executive could do in a month at 25 lakhs loan processing, he may be able to do 35 lakhs. So these are all advantages which will reduce our operating expenses and increase productivity. Is going to be ordered. So we are all, not only Indostar, the entire industry, NBFCs and banks are moving towards digitization. Who is going to have best product and who is going to use it is the decision making, which you are going to do. But top to bottom, if the company's executives are aligned and believe that this is the way we have to move forward, then you will use it. Suppose the management team is not very enthusiastic about digitization and stick to the original, earlier old method of my business is relationship based, or I'll continue, then over the next 5 years, they will lose out. Because that customers also have, I have worked in a company which is financing bottom of the pyramid who have been paying cash to us. But those things have gone. Today, everybody is on Google Pay and Phone Pay. They're all using this. UPI has come, and everything is in formats which can be transferred digitally. So I think the realization has come. Everybody is investing a lot of money to be ready to launch this so that they can take advantage of the transformation that is taking place.
Sure. Thank you so much for that elaborative answer. In fact, you've covered the whole customer journey in your, reply to digital transformation journey. I had a very specific question on that because I felt that in your kind of industry, as you mentioned also, that the nature of the customer is quite different, right? So generally, when we talk about customer these days and we talk to the leaders, industry leaders, they are typically talking about the customers which are more like millennial, everything on the go, on the internet basis, right? So, I mean, on that, you have a different set of customer. They have a very different set of challenges, and you as an organization, a very different set of challenge to address those. And you have kind of beautifully covered that how you are trying to educate and bring about that change in the way the business is done in a traditional way versus now you are emphasizing it for next 4 to 5 years. But on customer centricity, I will still like to ask you a question, which is, the customer experience in financial institutions is critical, which you also mentioned, right? And particularly around customer experience, what strategies you have adopted to focus on this critical success factor to potentially increase the top line and help boost overall economy? And you've spoken about digital transformation journey and the app and all these efforts that you have been putting down. But help us answer in more in terms of what is the potential that it can contribute to the top line, not just of the organization, but I'm saying economy of the country at large, right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned to you earlier, NBFCs have been filling gaps in the economy. There is a big brother, which is banks, which are there with a lot of liability strength and regulatory support. But what happens is there are sections of the economy in a large country like India, which banks have not been able to cater. That is where the importance of NBFC comes in the country. In spite of the challenges it has faced, it has been able to build successful NBFCs in the country. It is because they have been addressing gaps. For example, if you take consumer finance, today Bajaj Finance is a revelation, success story, where a consumer financing company could create 2-3 lakh crore of market cap of high valuations in a business which is crores of people it is managing and growing every. Similarly, Shriram Transport, a business which everyone considered to be difficult and challenging, risky. It created a business model. You take the very old business of pawning business, which a particular community was specializing. It has been corporatized by Muthoot and Manappuram, gold loan business. So every gap in the economy, NBFCs created a business out of it and thrived, which banks could not do. But there has been a very, very good partnership between banks and NBFCs, because banks lend money. Using that money, we have been lending to these sectors. So these niche segments of the economy, we have been creating a lot of business value and top line, which is contributing to the economy of the country. So I always felt that financing a second-hand truck business is not getting that much recognition as financing a new vehicle. But in every asset, what is very important is replacement. So if you finance the replacement, and today, government is talking about scrappage, end of life policy, and all that. So without a second-hand vehicle financier, you cannot modernize the fleet in the country, because old vehicles will have to be financed, churned, and then moved out slowly. So very useful role is being played by the NBFCs, which is creating a lot of top line and contributing to the GDP of the country, because everything is directly linked to the economy of the country with The lessons we have learned, insights we have got from the pandemic, the entire industry, even in those niche segments where the customers are not tech savvy, is fine-tuning its strategies to digitize, modernize, to take advantage. So customer is centric to every digital initiative we are taking. Without customer, there is no business for us. So our buyer is critical to our success. And we address their needs, their gaps. And every NBFC, whatever be the business, is financing an entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur is a truck operator, and the entrepreneur is a home buyer, an entrepreneur is a gold loan buyer, an SME, who for his working capital, which he is not getting from bank, he goes to Manappuram, pledge his wife's jewelry and take money. So everywhere we are financing an entrepreneur, contributing to the economy. With the digitization, we are moving forward, very aggressive, very fast, and we will be ready in the next 2 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months. Every NBFC will be ready with, equally good product in digitization, which will help our customers to conclude the transactions quickly and get the loan. So that is going to help their business and also our business. So our top line will increase. We will be contributing more to the economy, but indirectly we are empowering our customer, who is also a component of our economy. He is also contributing to the economy. So without money, the economy is not going to move. So banks are wholesale financiers, NBFCs are retail, but NBFCs cater to niche segments, which banks couldn't do. So our march towards success and contribution to the economy will continue. And it is going to increase much more because of the digitization, the new era we are going, and also the shakeout which has happened in the last 2 or 3 years have reinforced and made the NBFC industry stronger.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Shankar.
So Daya, if I may come in, Sridhar sir, what's your take in terms of where do you see platforms evolving in terms of where you're from where you're sitting? I think you have a holistic view of where the market is headed in terms. Do you see platform business models picking up and gaining mainstream attention?
NBFCs, true to, frankly, we have been a brick and mortar, neighborhood branch, relationship-based business. Everything you do it in a physical manner. That is the specialization which NBFCs have done. But suddenly, this digital transformation is coming, which to some extent it was there. Slowly it has been coming, but now pandemic, the COVID advantage is that it's opening up a different window of moving towards the digitization in a very, very big way. So we are adapting to this new format of moving away from a physical intervention to a digital intervention. So we are gearing up to that. And whatever you have been asking about platform innovation and all that will happen, but over a period of time. Everything is being now understood by the NBFC industry. So as Mr. Shankar has said, a customer who comes into NBFC remains with us forever. So if he comes and buys an old vehicle, he doesn't stay as an old vehicle customer. His aspiration is to buy a new vehicle. So he upgrades slowly, through his credit performance, he upgrades to a new vehicle. So we keep him in that journey. And after buying a new vehicle, he becomes a multi-fleet owner. And slowly he moves to bank and access cheaper credit. We don't have any quarrel. So we are creating a good quality customer who will seek lower interest credit from bank. But during the period, he has been cured by NBFC by keeping him for decades. That's one. Second is when a vehicle is funded, it remains with us till it goes to a scrapyard. So it changes from one person to another, but the new buyer is funded by us. So our funda is customer you retain forever, vehicle also you retain forever, and people also you retain forever. So our employees also we retain forever because we are engaged in a niche segment. You can't keep training people and lose them to competition. So you keep them forever. So these people are not tech savvy. They have been becoming tech savvy. So we need to get into digitization, train them. Customers are not tech savvy. So our people have to become tech savvy. So we'll have to invest a lot of money in training and all that, so that we give the customer a delight of a transaction experience plus turnaround time, lower cost, higher productivity, contribution to the economy bigger. All these will happen. But do not expect that everything will happen immediately. But it is a journey which will take few years for NBFCs to adapt to a new digital transformation and contribute. But the good thing is that we have realized it, we have moved fast, and we are preparing ourselves to go through that journey.
Sridhar sir, you spoke about a lot of challenges, decades after decades being faced by the industry. But there is one challenge which has become very critical in today's era with respect to the cyber security and data breaches, right? I would like to have your views on that as well, sir, because a brand like yourself, where the whole business model, as you said, is built on the trust factor, right? So it's a trust of the consumer, trust of the employees, trust of the brand that reflects the success of the enterprise or the institution, right? How are you facing this challenge, and what's your take on this?
This is a focus area, and we are doing a lot of things to have this cyber security not impacted by that. And fortunately for us, last year in May 2020, we had a global partner who came in and took a majority stake in Indostar. Brookfield, which is a $600 billion invested private equity in the world, second largest, found it attractive to invest in Indostar and partner with the management team. Because any NBFC to be successful, it is not sufficient that you have a business model on the asset side, but you should have strength on the liability side also. So in that respect, we have been very fortunate to have the partnership of Brookfield, which is backing the management team to build a low ticket, highly scalable niche segment of affordable housing, as well as second-hand commercial vehicle. So Brookfield is a global partner. So there are a lot of global standards which we need to follow. Whether it is accounting or technology or bribery, empanelment, so many things which we have to follow. So one of them is the cyber security. So they have very high standards. Already multiple audits have already happened. So that we are confirming. So our cyber security is there. Plus global standard cyber security adoption is taking place through Brookfield. Then the third is our regulator is also looking into it. So we are completely in line with what is expected in this area. And in our case, it is not our own initiative plus the regulator. We are also conforming to the global standards and audits. So I think that is sufficient. As far as Indostar is concerned, we should be 1+ in comparison with other agencies because of the global attention.
You shared your complete journey, what has been done, what is being done, and Also, you shared a little bit about what is in store, what is something that you've been working on. But I would like to exclusively seek your inputs on as to, given next 2 to 3 years, the kind of mandate that you have within the organization, what are the key initiatives that you have in place or you have planned to be executed? If you can share those with us, sir.
So out of my last 4 years journey in this company, fortunately or unfortunately, 2.5 years had been spent on survival. And during this period of the most challenging, as I outlined, credibility crisis, GDP plus pandemic, fortunately, we have done a lot of right things at the right time by bringing partner, engaging into digitization. And we are a slightly unique company where we are transitioning from a wholesale business to retail. So any business entering is easy, exiting is tough. So it requires a lot of patience and perseverance to exit. So we are going through the transition, and we will be complete with that in the next 6 months. And we have, after the Brookfields partnership, we have put together a very aspirational 5-year plan. By, for example, in the commercial vehicle financing business, we are at 3,000-4,000 crores now. But I feel in the next 5 years, the kind of potential which is unfolding post-pandemic plus scrappage policy, modernization initiatives of the government, we can look at growing this 10 to 12 times. So we are preparing, we are taking a lot of initiatives to do that. Similarly, in the affordable housing finance, that government has clearly slated its policy that housing for all. And particularly, affordable housing is where the India, Bharat stays. People who want 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs for their requirements. So that is where we are addressing. So I think we are in the growth areas, niche segments, and we have put together a very aspirational plan. And as we have been able to attract capital, we have been able to attract talent also. Very good talent has come and joined this company. So we are going to have a very exciting 5 years. And every year we will be showing a traction, growth consistently to reach our destination in the next 5 years. So when I was in Shriram Transport in 2005, we were just 5,000 crores. And when private equities came and put money, they said at least 2 to 3 times you should grow in 5 years. But we grew 10 times. So normally we underestimate our capability. I don't overestimate. I always underestimate and overperform. So I think the potential is very big. And as we have gone through downs, the next cycle will be up. So the next 5 years is going to be glorious for India, where in that cycle, well capitalized, good processes, good products, good team, combined with an eye on digitization, is going to make the organization successful. So in that respect, I think we have done everything right, and we are in that inflection point. So the next 5 years is going to be glorious. And answering your question, if the 5 years is glorious, it's going to be the destination. So the journey also, your 2 and 3 years also is going to be as exciting as it is going to be the destination.
I'm personally feeling after this conversation that the future is very bright. As Sridhar sir said, that the next 5 years is going to be very glorious, and I am really looking forward to that emerging, Bharat in some sense through the contribution of each one of us, and especially leaders like Sridhar sir. I think collectively we will definitely make things happen. I am pretty confident on that. With that, I would like to thank you, Sridhar sir, for taking out time today and accepting our invitation to be on this, available for this interview. It was wonderful interacting with you and lots of learning.
Thank you for Business World for this opportunity to share our views and perspectives. So we really enjoyed. Thank you very much for the opportunity.